All right, any other, just moving on. Alrighty.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Taste Like Music. Jason, Joe, and Crams are here. And it's a big week this week. We've been building up to this for a few months now. We've got 1982 week coming at you. And yeah, we've spent the last couple of months listening to records from 1982. If you're new to the channel and don't know what this is all about, back when we started the channel, we did a series called Albums of the Year. Each of us picked our 5 favorite albums from every year from 1965 through 2021. And, after doing it, we kind of felt like it didn't fully represent the full, depth of our tastes and different things that we like. And we also felt like maybe we could take a little more time to dig into other things that were a little more outside of our wheelhouse. So periodically now, every couple of months, we're going back to a different year and doing a deep dive on it, spending a few months listening to different things, and coming up with a more representative list of what we like from those years. We did 1972. Now it's time for 1982. And we're going to break it up. So like we did with 72, we're going to have a video dedicated for each of our top 25s. We're also going to have another set of videos dedicated to each of our top 25 songs. So you're going to get 6 videos in total. So make sure you hit the bell, getting those notifications when all these videos are dropping. Hit the like button while you're at it. And this is Joe's episode. He's going to kick off 82 week with his top 25 albums. And Cram and I are basically just here to, watch, lend some commentary here and there. But this is mostly Joe's show, and we're going to hand it over to Joe now.
Some moral support, maybe. All right, well, I love this year. I love 1982. I know some of us on this panel do not, but I think it's just a great year. And it's weird how many of my favorite, all-time albums come from this year. So when we did album of the year, it just wasn't even close to enough. 5. It was embarrassing to myself to, exclude some of these albums that I love, but make up for it here. My 25th favorite album. And God, there are so many. This last spot's always the hardest one. There's at least 10 albums in contention for this. I ended up going with Talk Talk, and The Party's Over. And just listening to all the synth pop albums from this year, this one really stands out. I really like the synth lines. They're really hypnotic and powerful. And I think the music is really full and complex. It's very, well arranged and produced for a young band. And I think it's just slightly more consistent than some of the other ones. I really like arias and symphonies from Spoons and Quartet from Ultravox, but they didn't quite live up to old favorite Talk Talk. So that's my number 25. 24 is going to be The Night Fly from Donald Fagen. Might be surprised to see it this low. And it maybe surprised me a little bit, but it's not Steely Dan. I love Donald Fagen to death, and you still get that wicked wit, and there's the smooth jazz and the funky 80s compositions and the yacht rock, but it's just not quite on the Dan's level, and there's no slight in Mr. Fagen. But there's still some great songs. IGY and The Night Fly are both spectacular. So maybe just not quite as consistent as the best Dan albums, missing that harder edge. Number 24, I'm going to go with a little country bluegrass, the only appearance by anyone remotely in this genre. I got Highways and Heartaches from Ricky Skaggs. And I think it's the bluegrassness of the album that sort of puts it above the other country albums I heard from this year. It doesn't sound like the 80s. It sounds timeless. Skaggs brings in so many great players, and he himself is such a great mandolin player. There's great fiddle, pedal steel, and the songs are just simple reworkings of classic country tunes. You can't go wrong with that when it's played at that level. Number 24, 23, 22. I'm going to go with The Damned and Strawberries. But band remind me a lot of like the Stranglers. They were the first punk band, at least in the UK, to have a single and an album, and that was 77. So 5 years later, they're expanding to encompass so many different variety of genres. You got like Baroque pop, still some punk, some mod stuff, ska, rock, a little bit of everything, and just a lot of fun. And one of many new discoveries I made this week, but they were definitely one of the best. And then number 21, I got The Roaches with Keep On Doing, another album that like doesn't fit in the 80s at all because it doesn't sound like the 80s. And sometimes when you're listening to music from 1982, you need that break from like those 80s synths. And bands like The Roaches really give you that. Another one produced by our boy, Robert Fripp, who plays guitar on a couple tracks, not too much. It's mostly them, the Roaches sisters, playing just really beautiful folk and like also inserting like their weird sense of humor in a lot of the lyrics. It's just really unique and weird and cool. And Losing True is just a spectacular song. So look for that maybe on the top 25 songs list.
Are you ready to apologize to me for giving me shit about liking their debut record?
Um, yes, but I don't know. I listened to it. It didn't strike me when I heard it, so I don't know why this one, for whatever reason, I seem to gravitate towards more.
I have not heard that Ricky Skaggs, The Damned, or The Roaches, so check those out. But I'm curious to know what Talk Talk just beat out to get the 25 spot.
There are, with basically the same rating, I had Nebraska from Bruce Springsteen, Marshall Crenshaw's self-titled, Lighten Up from Minako Yoshida, Glassworks from Philip Glass, Forever Now, Psychedelic Furs, and Diver Down from Van Halen, right on the cusp there.
So there's Joe's honorable mention list. And if you were deciding between Spoons and Ultravox and Talk Talk for like synth pop records, I think you made the wrong choice.
Maybe it was tough. I think the Talk Talk is just more consistent. I think the Spoons album might have the best highs, and Ultravox starts off really strong, and then I don't know, it kind of faded both of those for me towards the end of them. So Talk Talk just has that staying power, and I love the band, so I gave them the slight edge. All right, any other? Just moving on. Alrighty, here's one I don't really need to talk about that much. Phil Collins. Hello, I must be going. Phil Collins isn't sexy. Doesn't matter. He's a phenomenal person, a great drummer. He's kind of goofy and weird on this album, and I like it. There's some experimentation, but endlessly melodic. And I know Cramser hates the Phoenix horns, but I love the Phoenix horns, and they elevate this album. I did drop it down. I think I maybe had it 4.5 stars at one point. It's down to 4 star territory for me, but you know, I still think it's great. Here's one. I didn't hear anyone talking about this like at all. And in all of our Discord discussions, nobody mentioned Marvin Gaye. Like, come on. I got Midnight Love in my number 19. Just 1982 is known as one of the best years for R&B in history, and Marvin Gaye is definitely a big part of that. Sexual Healing is fantastic. People do look at this one like it's a big comeback of his, and I guess it was commercially, but as far as like critically and as far as I'm concerned, he never really went away. I like his stuff preceding this more than this. This is one of my lesser favorites post What's Going On, but it doesn't mean it's bad. I still think it's great, and he sounds great and relaxed, and he's having a lot of fun. Tragedy would strike soon after, but he gave us one last great album with Midnight Love. Number 18. This is the weirdest one, I think, on my whole. Well, maybe not the weirdest one because I got some weird ones coming up, but um, I I got White Heat from Dusty Springfield on my album. I just have so much fun with this one. It's Dusty Springfield doing like post-disco new wave. There's like a hard rock on there. And I just think it's awesome hearing her sing and not really that belting out like Motown aping stuff, but her 80s kind of smoother vocals with like vocoder backing vocals and drum machines and disco bass lines. Like it just blows my mind that this album exists. And I think it's really well written and she does some really cool stuff on it. Donnez-moi, Sooner or Later, Softcore. Just great. It was her and her girlfriend, I believe, at the time. So she's sort of exploring her sexuality on this more than she ever had. So it's a really interesting album from Dusty Springfield, White Heat, my number 18. And my number 17 is going to be the last 4 star. It's going to go up soon after, but one more. I got another Gray Area from Graham Parker, another new one to me. And people always tell me, they've told me, listen to Graham Parker, he's great, and I never had before. And I was just going through like a list of albums that I guess Rolling Stone gave 5 stars to, and somehow this popped up. It blows my mind. Rolling Stone's 5 stars are so bizarre. But this was on there. I listened to it. I loved it. It's like a little bit of a less jittery Elvis Costello with the melodies of Difford and Tilbrook and like a little bit of like Tom Petty in there, like some Sandpaper. It's really cool, really melodic, but some good hard rock edge, and I think Graham's good with lyrics. So a really cool album. I was not familiar with his stuff, so I got to now go explore his entire catalog, but just a good taste of that. And my first 4.5 stars, another fun discovery. Going a little city pop. I got Tetsuro Yamashita with For You. And this is the dude who basically invented city pop, which, if you don't know what it is, it's that sparkly combination of disco, yacht rock, and funk that captured the hearts of the burgeoning Japanese middle class in the late 70s and early 80s. I read that myself. This dude basically invented it in like mid 70s. And this might be the pinnacle. Sparkle, music book, Futari. It's just really warm and friendly and like just fun to listen to. Makes you feel good. So yeah, 4.5 stars for you, Tetsuro Yamashita.
Very nice. Sounds like you did your research and went deep. It's been an interesting list so far because it's very trendy to like what Joe likes or like gets into. Like you can tell like he got into it with this during that time, like months ago when we were doing this or that. It doesn't really scream 82 at all so far to me, other than Talk Talk and Phil Collins. And I guess the one you just talked about, which is kind of cool. That's why we do the deep dives, and that's why we're individuals. Yeah, don't like that Phil Collins album a lot. Do like that Marvin Gaye. Spoiler alert, won't make my top 25. Don't know the Graham Parker or the Dusty Springfield. But I'm intrigued by your terrific back of the DVD cover summary of Totsuba Yoshimama, whatever it was called.
I don't want to give too much away about what I do and don't have on my list, but we do not have too much in common yet. So I think collectively, the three of us, correct me if I'm wrong, if you guys remember, we had 7, I think, that all three of us had in the 72 lists. The way this is going so far, I do not see that number being that high this time around. Maybe 2, maybe 3.
Well, that's because 82 is a pretty even, like, we're all like, yeah, 72 rules. I'm like, 82 is really cool for certain reasons. Joe's like, yeah, it's cool, but for different reasons. And Jason's pretty much like, no, it sucks. So
72 has those albums that like everyone universally acknowledges is like the best of all time. Like 82 has like one album that people like think of when it's 1982, and then so much other like weird stuff. So it's fine. I listened to 155 total albums for 1982. And there were some, I mean, some well-known ones I never got to either. So it's by no means a complete list. I didn't listen to the Kiss album from 82, sorry to say. Creatures of the Night, I believe. Yeah, I missed that one. All right. Cramser didn't think my list was 80s enough. Well, that's about to change. Well, actually, no, it isn't. This one's another weird like intersection of a band that people don't think of the 80s when they think of this band, and like the 80s sounds that kind of creep in and make it unique. I got the Broadsword and the Beast from Jethro Tull. It's another one. Like I just love hearing Jethro Tull's like folky, like sea shanty singing ways, like get mixed up with like weird synths and like 80s sounds. And I just think it makes it so unique. It's so obviously of its time, but like it never sounds like this again. So you have songs like Broadsword and Seal Driver that just like they could have existed in the 70s. They would have been awesome. But like you get that like weird 80s synth stuff and the drum machines and whatever else kind of peeping in. And it makes it just totally unique and ridiculous, but I love it. Flying Colors might be my favorite on it. Just completely ridiculous. Um, but it's great. Along with that one, I'm going with another prog E band. I got Asia with self-titled Asia. That's 1982. Big time. Super cheesy. I get it. Heat of the moment. But I love seeing John Wetton and Steve Howe and Jeff Downs and Carl Palmer kind of stoop to like level of 80s pop, but also integrating like their proggy tendencies. And it's just another one that like can only exist in 1982, and I love it. Number 13, I'm gonna go with the purple one. I got Prince, 1999. It is too long. I will say that. It's a double album. It's too damn long, but it is prolific parade of potent pop, funk, like practically pornographic lyrics on Let's Get Married. It's brilliant and like ludicrous at the same time. And Little Red Corvette remains one of the great songs ever written. So got to get Prince in there, of course. Another big time 1982 80s band. I got Duran Duran with Rio. This isn't a perfect album by any sense of the imagination, but the highlights: Hungry Like a Wolf, Save a Prayer, Rio, just so awesomely 80s pop. And there's some more interesting stuff. I think the Chauffeur is really cool. Shows what they could have done if they went a little weirder, a little artsier, maybe a little post-punk almost. Number 11, one of my favorite guys that I've been getting into recently, and he brings his wife along with him. Richard and Linda Thompson with Shoot Out the Lights. Lyrically, I think this is probably the best album of the year. Emotional carnage. And it's just one of those albums that it's hard to believe it got made because they were divorced in the middle of divorcing, and just they obviously like hate each other, but they're like going through with this album, and they both get like their chances to like snipe at the other one. And they go back and forth with the lead vocals and everything, and it's just devastating, but it's really great. It's a must listen. It's one of those all-timer albums that I'm sure we'll see a lot of in the comments and the Patreon lists.
People will be simultaneously happy to see Tull, but not on an 82 list since we've never really talked about them much on the channel, and this is the most we probably ever have outside of their newest album's review. So we'll see how that goes over.
Nothing too surprising in that set of five, except for the Tall, which I was kind of surprised to see. Although I did listen to that and was pretty pleasantly surprised at how good it was.
Yeah, Asia, Prince, Duran Duran, those are classic Joe picks. I have heard all five of those albums, so finally we're in territory where I can relate to. Not saying anything's on my list, but we all know Prince is on my list.
All right. It probably gets less exciting as it goes on here in my list because I think these are like obvious Joe picks. My number 10, I mean, if you've been paying any attention to the channel lately, we recently covered them. Yeah, semi-recently. I got X with Under the Big Black Sun, my first of 10 5 stars for 1982. I love this year. I think all these albums are must listen to, must haves. And, this is their third album, expands the sound even more from their punk and rockabilly sound. I love the cover of Dancing with Tears in My Eyes and Billy Zoom's guitar work on that song. And the closer, the Have Nots, is just some of the best non-metal guitar work of the 80s for sure. And I just love their sound and their unique aesthetic, the punk rockabilly sound. It's really great. The dual vocals, cool stuff. Number 9, RIP to Queen, Christine McVie's. I got Mirage. I think people scoffed when I had this at 5 stars in the Fleetwood Mac video, but I think this album is basically perfect. I think it has all the best parts of Fleetwood Mac. It's less weird than Tusk. It has, some of the pop gems of Something You Find on Rumors. It doesn't have the bad 80s production that you'd have on Tango in the Night. And it's Lindsey Buckingham's show. And I just find him so fascinating. Book of Love, Can't Go Back, Empire State, his weird stuff mixes perfectly with Stevie Nicks' Gypsy and Christine's Hold Me, which is basically a perfect song. So there's nothing here I don't love, and I actually find myself listening to Mirage more than any other Fleetwood Mac album. Number 8, I'm going to go with The Nylon Curtain, falling a little bit from its original top 5 spot. William Joel, it's tribute to McCartney.
Stop,
William
stop
Joel.
saying that. He writes
Jason, can you
music like
mute
a
him?
child.
Can you
Give
just
him the name
mute?
Billy.
I don't like to be interrupted. William Joel's tribute to Jonathan Lennon and Paul McCartney, I guess. Paul isn't long, short for anything. But I love this album. It's very dark. You got the tragedy of Allentown. He's exploring his mother issues, just like John Lennon did, and Laura. And one of the most poignant, even-handed Vietnam epics, I think, ever in Goodnight Saigon. Number 7, my former winners, Fallen, Rush, Signals. I still love it. It's still 5 stars, but I don't know. I feel like in 82, I just wanted to give them a win because we were kind of getting past the point where they could. Listening to them all together, I mean, I love Subdivisions more than almost anything. It's one of the best songs ever written. I think Neil Peart's lyrics on this album are just great, all over the place, on point, angst filled. But I don't love like Countdown as much as you would need it to be a 5 star top of the list album. Even The Weapon isn't my favorite, and maybe I overlooked that because you got Digital Man and Analog Kid and New World Man, New World Boy, Analog Boy, whatever. I get those 3 confused. It's a great album. It's still 5 stars. I love it. The way they work in synths is just spectacular. Changed the sound for the 80s and did not miss a single beat. I think they even got better. And then number 6, another one that was in my top 5 before. It's just on the cusp. These top ones are really hard to parse. So I'm gonna drop it down to number 6 with a Lexicon of Love from ABC, produced by Trevor Horn of the Buggles. Lexicon of Love just has some of the most audacious bass lines. You got sophisticated keyboards, those horns, Martin Fry's yearning romanticism, the theatricality of it all. I just think it's brilliant stuff. I think it's the height of sophistopop and clearly an influence on the entire sound of the 80s going forward. So a wonderful album. ABC would completely go off the rails immediately after this and never even come close getting back to this sound and this level. But what a friggin' debut. Lexicon of Love.
Didn't think I don't really remember the X ratings that much, so that was kind of surprising. Fleetwood Mac I saw coming, and yeah, I'm sorry I interrupted you. I know you don't like being interrupted, but neither did those people watching television in their living room when he drove his car into there. Um, Signals falling that hard is rough. You are such a, and I'm not saying this is neither good nor bad, a recency kind of thing. Like if you just listen to Signals today on amazing, good quality speakers, you'd be like, oh yeah, maybe I did slide it down at 7 a little bit. Like, and that's just because you love music. Hard pill for me to swallow putting ABC ahead of Signals, but that was your best batch of 5 so far, other than Billy Joel.
No surprises there. Signal's falling 6 spots, though, is a little surprising, I guess. That's a big fall.
Especially since we just recorded the Rush set list draft. I thought maybe that just exhausted you so much where you're like, oh, I did so badly there. I don't want to think about it.
I mean, all of these were in my top 10 before when I was making the original album of the year list for 82. So I don't know. I love all these albums. I don't care. Um, they could change tomorrow. Number 5, we talked about this band recently. We ranked their entire discography. I got Judas Priest, Screaming for Vengeance, number 5. And this was my winner for Judas Priest. Shows how strong this year is, that it only clocks in at number 5, one of the great metal albums of all time. There's nary a Duff moment on the whole dang album. It's got, the hard metal, stuff like Electric Eye, but it's catchy too. It's their breakthrough in the US. You got another thing coming. Take These Chains, Fever. It's got it all. I love the claustrophobic sound and the crazy technical guitars, which is like, I don't know where the hell it came from because they weren't doing any of this shit on Point of Entry or British Steel, and suddenly they come out and just like shredding masters. It's credit to Glenn Tipton and KK Downing for continuing to evolve and get better on guitar. Number 4, I think this was probably the biggest surprise that it missed in the top 5 last time. No More, Thriller, Michael Jackson. I finally got over The Girl Is Mine. I don't think it's quite as terrible as I once thought. Although if you flip it with Say, 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 which ended up on whatever Paul McCartney album, it would be maybe the most perfect album of all time. That's really the only thing holding it back, is that kind of lame duet with Mr. McCartney, whose album, Tug of War, was in my top 50 for this year. So he came close to making the list. But want to be starting something. Baby Be Mine, The Girl Is Mine, Thriller, Beat It, Billie Jean, Human Nature, PYT, Lady in My Life. It's just a murderer's row of songs, and it's produced perfectly. It's just incredible. Number 3, I'd hinted maybe that this was going to be my winner, but it's going to come up a little short. I got The Dreaming, Kate Bush. Strong number 3, though. I think, this is her unedited, unfiltered, just like all of Kate Bush. If you can handle The Dreaming, that's as much Kate Bush as you're going to get in one package. The work of a true auteur. She wrote and produced it all herself, and it's great. Now the Swallow, Sat in Your Lap, There Goes a Tenor, The Dreaming, just great storytelling, great playing, interesting arrangements, complex, just so cool. The way she screams and sort of uses her voice as instruments with the sampling and everything is just amazing. I love it. Love her. She's my favorite. But comes up number 3 because this is a great year. Number 2, still my runner-up, Imperial Bedroom, Elvis Costello. It would be tough for me to give Costello another win since I already have him winning in 79, 81, and 83. or that would just be too much. But I mean, there's I don't know. I don't even need to say anything. He brings in Jeff Emmerich as producer, brings in a little bit of that Beatles-ishness, especially on like Man Out of Time. The lyrics are perfect. The playing is perfect. Bruce Thomas, his bass work on Shabby Doll is beyond belief. It's incredible. The whole band's amazing. Costello's amazing. I love him, and could easily be a winner. But I got to give it to my boys. Number 666 in your playbook, number one in your hearts, Iron Maiden. Number of the Beast is going to be my winner for 1982. I love metal. What can I say? And I think this is, well, maybe the peak of metal, peak of 80s metal for sure. It's fast and furious, and Bruce Dickinson, who comes in for his first album here, brings just like that fire, that theatricality, the operatic vocals. It's mean, it's hard. The bass playing from Steve Harris is just incredible, transcendent, and it's just, totally cool and unique and badass, and, you know, Hail Satan and all that stuff. So, Number of the Beast, my winner, Run to the Hills, Prisoner, 22 Acacia Avenue. It's gonna be number one in 82 for now. It's so close at the top that I'm not like 100% about that pick, but that's what I'm gonna go with. We'll see again in 10 years when we redo this series.
Feel like you're just feeling the metal right now after we did Judas Priest. I don't know. I mean, if I dislike when you talk this way, where you kind of arbitrate it. Like, if you want to give the win to Elvis Costello, just do it. Don't worry about his stats. Like, if your heart, I mean, if you really like Imperial Bedroom more, then pick it. Who cares if you keep giving it to him?
No, I wouldn't actually base it on that. And I mean, Imperial Bedroom is probably my fourth or fifth favorite Elvis Costello record, and that would be ludicrous to place it at number one. And just as one last thing about 82, I can't think of another year even close to like, I can't think of another year that would have even close to as many changes at the top, or even like the possibility of changes at the top. Like, I think of a year like 1984, like no one's upsetting Purple Rain, or I think of a year like 1978, like no one's beating Van Halen 1. Most years don't change around like this. I think maybe like 1980 would be one possible example, but like maybe the top two battling it out in some of these years. But nothing like 82, where it's like I love legitimately 7 to 8 albums and could see all of them being number one. It's just a really weird year. That I had albums that I loved before we started doing this series and this show, and they all just happened to be from 1982 for whatever reason. I don't know.
Well, your list ended up being a very Joe list, which is a good thing. I think all of our lists hopefully reflect our taste. But I kind of thought your list was going to be a little wilder. I thought it might be a little crazy. I knew some of the stuff you were listening to and following along with the Discord and stuff, and I knew you were getting into some weird nooks and crannies of the year. A couple things made it from those excursions, but overall, this is pretty expected, I think.
Yeah, it's another year. I mean, it's a year where it was going to be really hard for anything to bump into those top 10 or 15 albums that I really loved. And I ended up with 64 or 63 four-star and above out of the 155 that I listened to. So strong year. Strong. I mean, I'd put it up against pretty much any other year from the 80s, some of the years from the 70s, beats the hell out of anything from the 90s, 2000s, 2010s, 20s, just stomps all over it. So love it. Love 1982.
So I'll say this without saying too much. It is just based on your list and what I know my list is, it is already impossible for us to match 72 with 7 in common for all three of us.
Wow. You didn't even have 7 of those?
I did not. Nope. So there you go. Great. Good job, Joe. Let Joe know what you think of his list. If you want to start dropping your list in this video, you can do that. You can wait till mine or Cram's video as well if you're still working on it. Just make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet, and keep an eye out for all these other videos coming out. Joe's songs will be next, and then I think we'll be getting to my albums and songs, and then Cram. So yeah, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.